Hello again, my Econ students. So this video is going to run through worksheet number 19, comparative and absolute advantage. Now, this is one of my favorite concepts to teach. I think it puts in very simple, very concrete terms why trade is a good thing. What we're going to see from this is that even if we could make everything better than another country, it would still benefit us to trade with them. And one of the examples I like to use is this. You know, it'd be pretty fair to say that my wife is better than me at everything. Doesn't matter, she's probably better than me. She's better than me at fixing the car. She's better than me at home improvement. She's better than me at raising kids. She's better at me than me at doing laundry. She's better than me at doing finances. She's better than me at cooking, and just name it, she's better. So, do you think it flies when I come home at night and I say, honey, you are better than me at literally everything, therefore you should do it all and I should do nothing? How do you think that goes for me? And I'll tell you right now, not very well. I've tried it. She still thinks that I can contribute, even though it's going to take me a little bit longer to mow the lawn or do the laundry or change the brakes on the car or clean up after dinner or whatever else. She still expects that I can make a contribution to the family, and the reality is I can still help her. In other words, even though she's better than me at everything, I can still contribute and improve our situation. Well, the same is true with international trade, right? Even if a nation literally, and we're going to see an example here in a second, is better than every other nation at making everything, they can still benefit by trading with others, and it's because of the concept of comparative advantage. So try to follow me on this. The hardest part is the math. If you can get through the math, it's really a very simple concept, but just understanding how to set up the math can be a little bit tricky when you see it. So the first thing to note is the definition of absolute advantage. Make sure you know the definition of absolute advantage. Absolute advantage is pretty simple. It simply means that you do it better. Okay, you are better than the other country. In this case, we're measuring it by how many hours it takes to make a cookie and a cupcake. I probably should change this because it always makes me hungry every time I do it. We're going to go with it for now. So, between the two countries, Cookie Land and Cupcakeville, which one is better at making cookies? Well, it takes Cookie Land 2 hours to make a cookie. It takes Cupcakeville 10 hours. I don't know what kind of a loser country Cupcakeville is, but clearly Cookie Land is better at making cookies. And why? They do it faster. Okay, they do it in fewer, you could say fewer hours. Okay, so they have the absolute advantage in making cookies. Easy. Number two, I don't know why you like to do that on me. Excuse me. Number two, who has the absolute advantage in cupcakes? Again, we're asking who does it better. Takes Cookie Land 4 hours to make a cupcake. Takes Cupcakeville 5 hours to make a cupcake. So Cookie Land also has the absolute advantage in making cupcakes because, again, they are faster. They do it in fewer hours. That's really embarrassing for Cupcakeville. It's been a source of embarrassment for them for a long time. But anyway, so here's a situation where Cookie Land literally is better at making both cookies and cupcakes than Cupcakeville is. The question we're going to ask is, can it still benefit Cookie Land to trade with Cupcakeville? And the answer is yes. Okay, as unlikely as that might seem, given what I've set up here, when we see the concept of comparative advantage, we're going to see yes, it still benefits them to trade. So, let's look down here. First thing you need to know about comparative advantage, make sure, and this is important, make sure you know the definition. Comparative advantage means you can make a product with a lower opportunity cost. Okay, absolute advantage means you do it better. Comparative advantage means you have a lower opportunity cost. This is the tricky part because we have to figure out the opportunity cost, and there's a little bit of math involved here. Okay, simple math, but if you don't know how to set it up, it's going to be very confusing. So, let's look at question 3. What is Cookie Land's opportunity cost to make one cookie? So, here's how you look at this. Okay, this is important. It takes Cookie Land, if you come back up here, it takes Cookie Land 2 hours to make one cookie. Here's the question. Instead of making that cookie, if they took those same 2 hours and used it to make cupcakes, how many cupcakes can they make in 2 hours? Well, it takes 4 hours for Cookie Land to make a cupcake. If they only have 2 hours to devote to making that cupcake, they could get through 1/2 of a cupcake. Okay, so they give up by making that cookie and spending 2 hours to make the cookie, they're giving up the opportunity to make half of a cupcake. Okay, so here again, let me say it a slightly different way. It takes 4 hours to get from Lexington to Indianapolis. Okay, it takes just like it takes 4 hours to make a cupcake. Okay, it takes 4 hours to get from Lexington to Indianapolis. If you only have 2 hours to drive, how close are you going to get? You're going to get halfway there, right? So if it takes 4 hours to get there, you only have 2 hours with which to drive, you can get halfway there, and then you run out of time. That's what's happening here, okay? Just to make sure you understand that. So basically, you're asking the question, how long does it take them to make a cookie? 2 hours. If they use those 2 hours to make cupcakes, they could have made half a cupcake, okay? Now, let's ask, we have to figure out, remember, what's comparative? Whoever has the lower opportunity cost. So we've figured out the opportunity cost for Cookie Land. They're giving up half a cupcake. Let's ask the question, what is the opportunity cost for Cupcakeville to make a cookie? We're going to use the same principle. To make one cookie, it takes Cupcakeville 10 hours. If they took those 10 hours and devoted them to making cupcakes, well, it only takes 5 hours to make a cupcake. So if they have 10 hours to make cupcakes, and it takes 5 hours to make one cupcake, they could make, that's right, 2 cupcakes in those 10 hours. In other words, by using those 10 hours to make a cookie, they're giving up the chance to use those 10 hours to make cupcakes, and so they give up 2 cupcakes. So, what's our definition? Whoever has the lower opportunity cost. So between the two countries, who gives up fewer cupcakes in order to make their cookie? Cookie Land does. Okay, so Cookie Land has the comparative advantage in making cupcakes because they have a lower opportunity cost. Okay, they only give up half a cupcake while Cupcakeville gives up 2 cupcakes. Okay, so they have a lower opportunity cost, so Cookie Land has the comparative advantage in making cookies. All right, now, fun fact, mathematically, it's impossible for a country to have the comparative advantage in both products. Never work out that way. So, if we feel good that Cookie Land has the comparative advantage in making cookies, guess who's going to have the comparative advantage in making cupcakes? Cupcakeville. But I want to run you through the math because I want to give you another look at it and make sure you are comfortable with how to do it. So, number 6, what is Cookie Land's opportunity cost to make one cupcake? Now, if you messed this up completely when you did the worksheet on your own, I would pause the video at this point and see if you can figure out the next couple questions, okay? And then bring the video back up and I'll go over it, all right? So pause it, and if that's the case, I'll be back with you in a moment. And if you paused it, we are back. So, number 6, Cookie Land's opportunity to make one cupcake. So again, the question is, for Cookie Land to make one cupcake, how many cookies do they give up? Well, it takes them, as you can see, 4 hours to make one cupcake. If they took those 4 hours and instead made cookies, which only take 2 hours, how many cookies can they make in 4 hours? They can make 4 cookies. Okay, I'm sorry, 2 cookies, all right? Get my math right. So, for Cookie Land to make one cupcake, they give up 2 cookies, okay, in order to do that, because it takes them 4 hours to make that cupcake. If Cupcakeville is going to make a cupcake, it takes them 5 hours. How many cookies can they make in 5 hours? Well, it takes them 10 hours to make one cookie, so if they only have 5 hours to devote to it, they give up half of a cookie. Okay, so they give up 1/2 cookie. Now, remember the definition of comparative advantage. Whoever has the lower opportunity cost. Who gives up fewer cookies to make their cupcake? Cupcakeville does. Okay, and that answer is on the back. So Cupcakeville has the comparative, and that's the symmetry between Cookieville and Cookie Land and Cupcakeville. Cupcakeville has the comparative advantage in making cupcakes because they have the lower opportunity cost. Okay, they give up fewer cookies in order to make their cupcake. So, again, comparative advantage is tricky, more tricky because there's an extra step involved. Absolute advantage is simple, whoever does better, and you can see that on the chart pretty simply. Comparative advantage, you have to first figure out opportunity cost, then figure out who has the lower one, okay, and that's the process on how to do it. Now, at this point, I have not proven that making your comparative advantage is the way to go. and you should let the other country make their comparative advantage, and you should trade. The next part that follows is going to demonstrate why and how trading can benefit even Cookie Land. Remember, even though Cookie Land makes both products better, they can still benefit from trade. So let's look at that. So here's our first scenario. Okay, so number 9. We're going to assume that at the end of the day, each country wants to have one cookie and one cupcake. Okay, here's the trick though. At first, they don't like each other, so they don't trade. So if they want one cookie and one cupcake, they have to make it themselves. So the question is, how long would it take each country to make one of each? Well, that's pretty simple. Just come back up to the chart. If you notice, it takes Cookie Land a total of 6 hours to make one of each. It takes Cupcakeville a total of 15 hours to make one of each. So that's the answer to number 9. Okay, if they're going to make one of each, one cookie and one cupcake, Cookie Land is going to use 6 hours in order to do that. Cupcakeville is going to take 15 hours in order to do that. Okay? Now, let's assume instead of doing it that way, instead of just isolating themselves and doing their own thing, let's say they decide, hey, let's make our comparative advantage. Okay, so instead of making one of each, Cookie Land decides they're going to make 2 cookies. Cupcakeville decides they're going to make 2 cupcakes, because that's what their comparative advantage are in. All right, so they're going to make, Cookie Land makes 2 cookies, Cupcakeville makes 2 cupcakes, then they trade 1 for 1. So remember, what was the goal? At the end of the day, each country wanted 1 cookie and 1 cupcake. Well, they get that goal. Okay, but now, instead of making one of each, they've specialized and they've traded, and let's see if they benefit from that. So, how long will it take Cookie Land to make 2 cookies? Okay, well, if you look at the chart, it takes them 2 hours to make 1 cookie, so 2 cookies is going to take them 4 hours. Okay, now, compared to when they made one of each, which took 6 hours, how much time did they just save? 2 hours. Okay, so notice they ended up with the same result. They ended up, in both cases, with 1 cookie and 1 cupcake. This time, though, they have saved precious, scarce resources. That's really cool. Remember, because resources are scarce. There's only so many of them. Well, now you have more. You have an extra 2 hours. You can go to the beach. You can whatever, vacation. You can do whatever you want with those 2 hours because you just saved it, which is pretty cool. Same thing is going to be true for Cupcakeville. So Cupcakeville, to make 2 cupcakes, is going to take them a total of 10 hours because it takes 5 hours to make one of each, or 5 hours to make each cupcake. Instead of making one of each, which took 15 hours, now they make their comparative and trade, and they've saved 5 hours in the process. Okay? That's really cool. Again, that is one way that we can save scarce, precious resources. All right? So, does it benefit both countries to make their comparative advantage in trade? Yes, because they both save time. Okay? So again, even Cookie Land benefits by focusing or specializing in what they're really good at, which is cookies, and trading Cupcakeville for what Cupcakeville is really good at, which is cupcakes, and then trading and they can have more. And they've saved time in the process. Another way of looking at it is, let's say Cookie Land wants to work for 6 hours because they love working and they love making cookies. If they take all 6 hours to make cookies, in 6 hours they could make 3 cookies. Okay, and if Cupcakeville takes all 15 hours that it would have taken to make one of each, if they take all 15 of those hours and just make cupcakes, they can make 3 cupcakes. So again, remember up here, they spent 6 hours and 15 hours, and the world had a collective total of 2 cookies and 2 cupcakes, because they made one of each. Now, using the same amount of time and resources, the world now has a collective total of 3 cookies and 3 cupcakes. Okay? So number 15, does this demonstrate that the collective wealth of both nations has increased? Yes, because we have more goods, okay, more cookies and cupcakes. Okay, another additional people can taste the wonderful goodness of a cookie and a cupcake. That's really cool. Okay, that's one of the benefits of international trade, is what we talked about with the notes, specialization and increased efficiency in this and that. And again, these are some very simple numbers that we can apply to it and look at it and say, yeah, it does really benefit everybody. Even if we're better at everything, we can still benefit from international trade. And so, at the end of the day, what do you always want to make? Absolute advantage doesn't matter so much. What's most important is comparative advantage, okay? Between the two, you always want to make your comparative advantage, okay? So, hopefully that makes sense. Again, the big part that people get lost in is that math on the front, the whole opportunity cost thing. If you got that figured out though, you pretty much got the concept. It's really not that bad. But again, watch the video again. If it's still confusing you, try to look at it another way. If you're still struggling, let me know. I'd be happy to walk you through it. And of course, that's our story for the day. So until next time, as always, stay healthy and happy.